Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808, and today we continue our series discussing which 90s rap act had the greatest 3-album run, and today it's going to be about one of the biggest rappers ever, Redman. And with me to break down this incredibly funky body of work is one of my favourite crews in the rap podcast world. All the way from South Florida, we've got the Take It Personal radio squad in their house. Jason Gloss, aka Phil of Flavor, DJ 360, Aaron Wade, and Kevlar. How are you boys doing, man?
Yeah,
What
man.
up? What up?
What's up, Cam?
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
that
Man.
great intro, man. Happy to be here. Thank you.
That's the first time Kev haven't had to do an intro. He was actually introed.
I'm usually
Change
the
your
intro
pace.
guy. I do the intro, I say my 2 sentences, and then I fucking leave and let these smart guys do all the work.
I might do that today. I might just take a leaf out of your book, though. Just like, I'll get some chips, and then come back, and then good stuff, man. But no, big fan. Jason, you've been on before. We talked Gangstar a while back. Went down well there, Jason. I think even Primo enjoyed that episode. He even put it on his Instagram, and I was really enjoyed that.
That was very cool.
Very cool. Man. But today it's Redman. We are going to talk about his 3-album run. We've done Cube, Pac, De La Soul, Tribe. All these will be talked about. All you guys out there, go check that out. But today we're talking about 92's Whut the album, 94's There Is a Darkside, and 96's Muddy Waters. This run, guys, it's serious. It's a serious run.
I think all of us have been listening to Redman for the past month, when we initially discussed this.
Yeah.
And I know when you had brought this idea to us, I was kind of like, oh, man, can we get Tribe or can we get Cube? Because those would be easier sells. I think
100%.
When it comes down to it, Ice Cube's first 2 albums are 2 top 10 albums. And the body of work speaks for itself.
For sure.
But the more I've kind of listened to the Redman catalog, and I really thought about it, at least coming from my point of view, it's hard to really compare a solo artist to a group. Like we wouldn't compare Bobby Brown and New Edition or John Lennon to the Beatles. So
True.
For this particular competition you have, I'm going to separate the groups from the solo artists, right?
That's all good, man. That's
For
all
the
good.
groups, and I've been listening to all the episodes that you've dropped. I listen to all your episodes, but especially I've listened to the De La and the Pac. I would say, without a doubt, it's got to be Tribe for a group, mainly not because of their debut. That's a classic, but Midnight Marauders and Low End Theory are 2 flawless albums. And I don't know if any other group has an album as important, as timeless, and as perfect as, say, Midnight Marauders and Low End Theory. And as much as I love Gangstar, look, we named our show Gangstar, or Outkast, or even Mobb Deep. I don't know if you're listening to murder music the way you would listen to Midnight Marauders today. So that's why I think, as far as groups go, Tribe takes it.
Okay.
Now,
That being said, Jay, like a trial, it's never what you say, it's how you say it. So I can make the argument and we can win any day of the week here.
So as far as the solo artists go, I believe you have Cube, Tupac, and Redman, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we heard the Tupac show, and I love Tupac. Me Against the World is top 10 album for me personally. Love it. It's my favorite Tupac album.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people probably prefer the first 2 albums maybe over the last 2 in that run. But I think Me Against the World had some filler, and I think All Eyes on Me was more of an emotional album. We lost Pac. We wanted to hear music from Pac, but it wasn't the same as, say, Me Against the World or All Eyes on Me. It didn't hit the same. So we're throwing Tupac away. Now we got Redman versus Ice Cube. We all know here it's an extremely, extremely difficult task to compare the 2. One, Redman hasn't really put out a lot of music in recent years, at least music worthy of listening to. Now, I'm not saying Cube has, but Cube is definitely more relevant. And his early body of work, when you factor in NWA, when you factor in his debut and the EP, and then it goes on, even up to maybe say Lethal Injection, magnificent run. First 2 albums, top 10 albums. Can't dispute that. So here's my take on why Redman had the best run.
Let's go.
when you chop up the 3 albums, they're all equally as great. Muddy Waters is just as great as What the Album or Dare's a Dark Side. Now, we may all have personal favorites, like Dare's a Dark Side, I think, is our favorites. But those albums are equally as great. And I think that's the separation between Cube and Redman. Redman has 3 albums to me that, whether you had Muddy Waters as the debut or What the Album is the 3rd album, there's no shuffling. They're all equal. The Predator is a very good album. You want to call it
there? You're stretching there.
You could call it a classic. I'm not going to be mad for people to call it, but it did not at all compare to Death Certificate and America's Most Wanted.
Not even close.
There's like different levels. This is top tier for America's Most with the Bomb Squad and Sir Jinx and crew for Death Certificate. Right there, 1A and 1B. But then here's the Predator.
And what about Kill It Will, man?
Well, but it's
EP.
an EP, so we don't really count that for an album.
Okay.
But
all right, fair enough.
So the Predator, while it was good and had a lot of joints that we liked, and we liked him working with Muggs and all that stuff, it's not the equal to the other 2. Redman has 3 albums that are all equal to one another. So I think the consistency is there. Also, Redman, and I'll let the other guys chime in. To me, he is like a unique character in hip hop. Like there's the Pharoah Monches and the MF Dooms, and there's the Redmans. He's like the Jimi Hendrix of hip hop. There's never been a Redman. There's been people that try to emulate Redman, maybe, a few here and there, but there's only one Redman. He's charismatic. He's one of the greatest lyricists, great storyteller, extremely witty. So I think that is what makes him so special. And because he didn't have a very strong second part of his career, a lot of people tend to forget about Redman. And a lot of the new generation, they're not really familiar with Redman, with the exception of maybe some of the movies or MTV Cribs and stuff like that. Yeah. But as a lyricist, as a rapper, Redman should definitely be within everyone's top 10, simply off the 3 albums that we're going to discuss today.
Damn, top 10.
And I think, Jay, what you really got to realize is not a lot of those records that you guys are already talking about had 3 records so close together. Tribe, how long between each record? I mean, it was pretty significant, but we're talking about, first of all, he was introduced in 1990 off EPMD, right? So his first record, I believe, was 92.
Yeah.
So
he's hardcore.
Hardcore and Brothers on My Jock, and then Headbanger was 90.
I think that was 1990, wasn't it?
Hardcore was 1990.
90 was hardcore. But, first of all, 1992 Whut starts off real strong, and it lets you really know what Reggie's all about. Time for Some Action, which, by the way, is probably Kid Capri's favorite back-to-back beat juggle. I think that was on Def Comedy Jam and a few other things, but he always killed that, and that became like an iconic thing for all the DJs. Yeah. That's one. But a really strong way to introduce his album to the world, with that first song. Even though this album had some elements of EPMD, it's really his own lane. And, let's just break down the commercial success of just this first record. You got Tonight's the Night, Blow Your Mind, Time for Some Action, How to Roll a Blunt, all very commercial, vibey kind of tracks that also go against other parts of the record, which is much more hardcore, much more rugged. And of course, you had more tracks like Rated R. That is so slept on. Rated R is like one of the greatest tracks off that first record. Yeah. So Rough was good. You have all those little skits that go in between. Not a lot of East Coast artists did that. You could almost think like Dr. Dre helped produce this record. It had all those little innuendos, all those little nuances. And for an East Coast artist, that really was not popular. And, it also had Eric Sermon and Pete Rock, doing a little bit of production. But first album's a guaranteed classic. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, for a guy who really came out of nowhere and was repping New Jersey, he really started setting his own lane. I don't know if you guys want to go like album for album.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go into each album as we go, but as you're talking about what, I mean, because we have a lot of people of different ages come into this. If you could tell me just on a personal level, the hype around Redman before this dropped, because I know we talked about Headbanger and that was out, and obviously the other stuff he'd done before with hardcore. When you guys came to this album first. What was that like for you guys? Like how did that differentiate itself from everything else out in '92?
Started with hardcore, I think, because that was the standout verse of the song.
Mm.
And people wanted to hear more. It was kind of like Nas on Live at the Barbecue, I think. As an introductory verse, you wanted more. And then what really did it for me was the Blow Your Mind video on the box. Because back then, the box was a big deal. People would call in and request videos, and his was in high rotation because the video was hype. That song gave you what you were hoping for, in my opinion. After you heard hardcore, you wanted to hear something like that. And he's kind of an innovator. He's one of the first weed guys. I mean, it was Cypress Hill and him. He was before the Chronic. This album came out 3 months before the Chronic.
Yeah.
So he's one of the first weed guys and having fun with it. He's one of the first guys to rep New Jersey. He came out before the Artifacts. He came out before Low Tug. So he was one of the first guys to really embrace New Jersey. And here's the funny thing about What the album, when you listen to it, it's so funkadelic and so funk heavy. You can't tell where he's from. And a lot of people, he said this in our interview, people think I'm from the West Coast because the whole first album is funk. But the thing I like about it, you can tell it's real heavy Eric Sermon. And then on the second one, he was left alone in the studio a lot.
It's all Redman.
Yeah, he did
so
his own thing.
Yeah.
But I really like that he progressed beyond just leaning on Eric Sermon, because like a lot of the songs sound alike, which is one of the only beefs you can come up with on a really strong album. What the album is, a lot of the songs sound alike because they had that Eric Sermon signature funk sound. And it was kind of like Dawes Effects. Like a lot of those songs sounded alike on the very first album, but he continued to progress on each album without taking any steps backward.
Yeah,
but he did progress, and he started his own lane. I mean, I think we can all agree Dara's A Dark Side is by far our favorite out of all of these three records. It was like, for me, best out of the trilogy. He changes it up. He makes it, he almost makes you feel like the album continues, because the first song.
Do you have a thesis on Redman you want to get out of the way right now?
No.
You're jumping.
No, he was just talking about Dare, so that's what I was just trying to say. He was going into it.
Yeah, but you're going into the Dare setup.
No.
As he talked about. It's like, fuck you, Kev. What do you have to say about what? That doesn't matter. Muddy Waters.
I was too busy getting high, so I couldn't even tell what song was what, because as Aaron Wade said, man, they all sounded so similar. But however, Time for Some Action is one of those perfect songs, in my opinion. You know, you got like Mind's Playing Tricks on Me. You
Absolutely.
have MC8, Menace to Society track. That's like another one of my favorite songs. Yeah, Straight Up Menace. Redman, Time for Some Action. It's a perfect song, dude. It's a fucking perfect song. And not only that, but I share the same opinion as Wade, where what the album does sound very similar track for track. However, Time for Some Action is just on a whole nother level. Yeah. And that's actually when I was really first introduced to Redman, because I kind of came into the hip hop game a little late, and I used to be spoon fed by like Yo MTV Raps or by, fucking radio and shit, dude. So when I heard Time for Some Action and the buzz that it was getting, dude, it got me all excited and hyped, and then I just fucking ate that shit up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a perfect song to start off an album. That's a perfect song to start an album.
Yeah.
And he had like every other song was an absolute banger. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like you said, Rated R, Watch Your Nuggets.
Watch Your
Bad.
Nuggets, yeah.
That shit was raw, man. Blow Your Mind.
Yeah.
Super dope first single.
And the Blow Your Mind was the first single, which is kind of crazy because I think Def Jam wanted to kind of ease him into it with some kind of radio joint. But when Time for Some Action came out, it changed everything. It was the perfect time. It featured Cypress, who was at the peak of their career. And like Kev said, it's a perfect song. If you have a list of like perfection, this is the epitome of it. And to go back to your question about the whole debut and what your thoughts were, when I heard hardcore, I think it was kind of like the feeling that many of us had when we heard AZ on Life's a Bitch. Like, you're like, all right, who is this guy? He stole the show. I need an album of his. So a few years later, in '92, when it came out, I think so many of us were like, okay, this guy's completely different from what we're expecting. And even though it was his debut and he's an East Coast artist and it was heavily influenced by like P-Funk, it kind of reminded me of Ice Cube's debut in a sense. Yeah. I know it was produced by the Bomb Squad, but the way the songs, the sequencing, and the fun that it has, and the skits, it was like, you know, when you put it like that, it was similar in that regard. It was a strong debut.
Yeah,
it was really well sequenced.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say, I'm with you there on There Is a Dark Side is my favourite Redman album as well. So we're kind of making a full deck here. But the sequencing on that is as good, I would say. One thing I was going to just touch on when you're saying that about Red, because I came to Red before I really got into EPMD. So I'm not sure if you guys were into Eric Sermon and Parrish before, and then Red came along. I was going the other way. So this is the first time I'd really, really ever heard something so hard, like it's Time for That Smooth, fucking hard, but over smooth funk. Like there is smoothie, like funk breaks on here where I'm like, wow, this is just a mix. Like he can do a lot. He's such a character. He even the comedy aspects. You talked about the skits. The man knows how to like make a skit work. And I feel the comedy aspect was another thing I'd not heard enough, where someone was just like, you know, talking about Rodney, was it, where Don King's like hair, and talking about like, you know, he's doing some random references. And I'm just like, wow, so that for me as well, the comedy aspect of it, although he talks about how grimy everything is in his life, the fact he span it like that, I was like, damn, I'd never, and I suppose that's where M comes from, and his legacy is huge, like in that aspect as well.
I feel like he was an innovator and one of the first guys to do the character thing. I mean, you got like 4 different names. You're not sure who it is on this one. It's like a hardcore Humpty Hump.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way of putting it, man. That's a great way of putting it. Redman meets Reggie. That's another time when I was like, hold on, he's rapping to himself. I know Slick's done it and I know Snoop had done it as well, but it was just different when Redman did it. I was like, this is just, again, like, you know, he shows what he can do. By the way, also talking about how wild it is for a debut, what the track I'm a bad when he just jumps and does a house like break in the middle. I'd not heard anyone. I'd heard like De La Soul do stuff like that at the time. So this was again an intro for me where I was like, oh, this guy's just wilded out. So I like that breakdown of the first album. I agree with you on consistency, by the way. The sheer consistency across the board on these, I agree with you. Let's go into There Is a Dark Side then. 94, 2 years later it comes out. Reggie's more on the boards here. What do you guys think is, you said there it follows on from this one. Does it even matter that there's growth, but is there any growth here for Redman as an artist going into the second album?
Well, I was just saying that it followed the last record, because I want you to realize all 3 of these records, he creatively had continuity. He took the very last song from the first album and started it to be the second album before Dr. Travis's, voice comes on and starts going into, we're going to change this up. It becomes like this psychotic journey through the mind of Redman. And I think we all, see that. I mean, what was that? Bob Your Head to This. Oh my God. Starts off the actual album and it's like a sample of Fallen in Love, which, if you guys remember, Downtown Science was the only group that did that way back when, but they sample that and it just teleports you into like everything Reggie wants to talk about. He did most of this production you talked about, and it was brilliant that he started to cut ties from Eric Sermon, because it allowed him to become his own artist and open up the lane a little bit wider, which most people who are like a protege or someone who's like co-signed from really try to stay almost in the lane so they don't fall out. And, again, second record gave you complete commercial successes. We had Can't Wait, Superman Lover, Tonight's the Night remix. But overall, the dark imagery of this record, not to mention the cover art, dude, I still cannot pass electrical lines to this day and think Reggie's not underneath the ground somewhere. I mean, it's insane. So what a switch up. I love this equally, if not more, because there was more depth to him. So, I don't think we could all ever say that, Dare is just not one of those genius masterworks, the same way, the Beasties' Paul's Boutique was, but on a different level. You know what I mean? More of a psychological type of album, almost like a Hitchcock type, darkness to it.
It gave me the vibe that he was like really doing hella drugs. Like he was up.
Well, he was.
He was on his face
when he was doing this.
He said it on our show. He was like pretty much locked into a room and he just did drugs and he made music. And I think that's kind of why we like it. It's such a dark album.
Yeah.
It's like the Empire Strikes Back of hip hop albums.
That is
that's perfect.
That is a great way.
And it's a sophomore album, so it's kind of fitting, but it's a very, very dark experimental album. Kind of like when I said he's kind of like the Hendrix of hip hop. I mean it. It's like his Are You Experienced album. This album is so dark and lyrically it's so genius. It's lyrically better than his debut. I mean, his debut, he said some funny shit, but this is kind of one of those albums where you rewind a lot of tracks. You're like, did he just say that? And you know what I'm saying? Like what we do with Doom and whatnot. Other than Can't Wait, I don't know how much commercial success it had. I know Andre said there was a few. Can't Wait, it was huge.
I just mean the vibe, the sound. Like it could be played in the club, something that wasn't like hardcore. It just had the samples were very vibey.
Yes.
You know what though? In '94, you could get away with that and make a real underground, mean ass fucking album and do okay with it.
Like Headbanger.
You didn't really have to do the whole radio thing because if it was Redman, he had that great first album. They're going to play the video on MTV Raps.
Yeah.
Rockefeller was the lead single off this album.
Yeah. You talk about drugs, the end of Rockefeller. What the fuck? Like he just like word is bomb, where is it? This whole moment, I was like, this guy's off his face. I love it. It's great.
It wasn't like he was smoking weed. He was doing like real heavy drugs at this time.
Shrooming it up a bit, yeah, definitely.
But I think he was in a zone. It made him better. Do you know another song that came out around this time that was not on this album, and if it was, it'd be even better? Is Funkorama.
Oh, off the Eric Sermon. Insomnia,
that one, It was recorded around this time, and it should have been on this album. Can you imagine if it was on this album? I know they threw like Tonight the Night remix on here, but if you had that on this record,
damn,
you can't even. We wouldn't even have to sell it; it would sell itself.
I thought that was later. I didn't know it was this time. That's crazy.
Well, I believe that came out in 95, 96.
Oh, so he's probably made it.
It was recorded around this time.
Wow.
Did they also remaster What the Album and put hardcore on there? I think they did.
I think there was
They did, yeah.
I think
track
it was
23, they did.
I want to say it was just his verse. It wasn't the song.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. I'm looking. Oh yeah, I got the enhanced CD where you get the videos. Remember those? Sorry, that's what I got. I got that remastered version where I got the
video. The ones that would freeze up your computer when you stuck the CD-ROM in.
You put Mobb Deep for In the Long Run, and your shit would be frozen. The CD-ROM would never work.
Yeah.
The Wu-Tang Chamber.
Oh, I love that. I loved that so
fucking
much.
Loud. They ruined
like you're
so
playing
many goddamn
Doom
computers.
with fucking RZA.
You got the power down.
Me for a packet bell.
That's superb. There are some. I know we skipped this on the first album because we talked about a lot of the tracks there, but because these albums, like you said, not a lot of people talk. I mean, they do talk about it, they know about it, but what I want to know is there any kind of hidden gems on these albums, the first and this one, where you would say that deserves more love? Like, is there any tracks that stand out to you now that you would say that?
I'm gonna go with what Andre mentioned about Bob Your Head to this. The way that he comes in, the beat is just so it thumps, dude. And then he's like, and I say right about now you are rocking with the best. Can I get a hit? Hit it. And then that's not Redman there. That's the guy hyping him up. But he fucking comes in and just goes raw, dude.
Yeah.
The album is just fun. It's dark and fun. It's kind of like if like Dave Chappelle was in like Scream 2, I don't know if that's probably a shitty analogy, but
I like it.
It's like it's like having a comedian in like a horror movie. You know what I mean? That's like Redman. And
you go from Empire Strikes Back to Scream 2. Same fucking.
Aaron, you got a blaxploitation film you want to throw in?
Great. I can't top that. You just dropped the two perfect ones.
Wasn't there a song? I think it's called. Is it The Journey? The Journey.
Yeah, The Journey. Yeah, yeah.
So what I loved about that one is it actually slowed the beat, BPM wise, slower than most that was going on at that time. Because you got to remember, in that part of the '90s, people were dancing to a lot more of the hip hop, even the rugged stuff, you know. But that one was slower and it was grimy, and it was like the note on the bass kick was like turned down.
Yeah.
So it was like a muddy.
Yeah.
And it was like haunting, and it was that stuck out to me.
I love that.
I think this album really fit into '94 well. There was a lot of fucking hard underground records in '94. Smith and Wesson, even shit like Diggable Planets. That album was dark.
Yeah.
The second one, I mean, everybody was kind of in a more of a underground zone at that time, and this totally fit that, I think.
It was Gravediggers around that time. I can't remember my dates.
Gravediggers was '94 as well.
94. So this is that hardcore element that this isn't horrorcore, but this does definitely feel like someone who's kind of snapping a little bit. Like the first one has the mental asylum stuff, but this one sounds like he's genuinely a bit more just. And obviously he's off his face, as we said, so he obviously was going to be.
He's whacked. I mean, think about what he's saying, like switching up speeds, riding a Fuji in a movie. How much drugs do you think it would take for you to even come out with those kind of? How does one even think of rhymes like that?
Yeah,
they need to make a game. 6 Degrees of Redman's Brain.
I just like his grunts, man. He's got great grunts in this album.
I like how he rags on himself, like the two characters, and he's like, you know, the pussy you ate from that girl Jill last night. He's like, that shit's classic. Nobody does that.
Yeah, man. That's
you guys have interviewed a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions about records, but a lot of them are monotone on one level. Redman is a guy he's all over the place. He's up, he's down, he's in between, he's hiding behind something, he's in front.
Yeah.
I mean, he's dynamic, man. So when you think of Redman records, especially these three, you're talking about somebody who's reverberating in a very, very different way. And that is the difference. So even with a group like Tribe, as good as that is, we all, would kind of agree that that's our 3 favorite. But if you really break down those Tribe records, especially 2 and 3, it kind of takes you on the journey of that lane. But this is all over the place, and you just don't know what you're going to get next.
Man,
you always feel good when you listen to Redman. You know, you listen to Redman, you feel good. It makes you cheery.
Listen to Redman now, pal.
And you get some. It does. Makes you feel happy.
Go put him on repeat for the next 24 hours.
Laugh,
Scrape a little Redman into a cigarette, brother. I think you do.
Cam, I think that's one of the things that separates Redman from a lot of other artists is that he's so goddamn likable.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a guy you root for, a guy you want to hang out with and smoke with or drink with and just chill with. He has that. It's like an infectious energy that he has with him. And look, we all love Cube, but Cube ain't the most likable guy these days. You know what I'm saying? But if you see Redman, you're like, oh, Redman, what up? And he is as cool in person or, as he is on record. Yeah. And I think just because he's so likable and he has this charisma about him that just sucks you in, you enjoy his music even more.
Man, that's true.
He must have talked to everybody that he ran into on his way to pick up his takeout food during our interview.
Oh man, I need to.
He had a full-blown conversation with the lady working the register. He was talking to Mo making the fucking curly fries. He was just talking to everybody.
Right.
It was great.
It
was exactly how I would envision him to be. Off of his music, when we had the interview, and then the fact that he took us on the road and picked up takeout food, and his interactions with everybody along the way, it was 110% Redman, and that's why I love the guy.
Yeah, I have to say, if no one's heard that episode, go to the vaults for these guys. Take It Personal Radio. That Redman episode is all time, because I remember hearing that the week it dropped. I'm pretty sure it was the week it dropped. This guy can't be real. He's just gone to a Chinese takeaway. He's ordering food. You guys rode it so well. You were like, okay, we'll just go with this then. Like, let's go. And yeah, that journey, yeah, man. So Kev, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's again one of the highlights, and it adds to that, as you said, character, but mythos around him as well. Like, there is that, and that's, I do think what we've said there about him being likable, we have to remember he became like a celebrity, like he's on Christina Aguilera songs. Like, you know, he's not he's not, you know, he's doing big films, and I don't know, and then he does MTV Cribs, and I think that all comes from this melting pot of music, but his charisma just transcends the albums. He becomes something completely different.
And don't gloss over the Cribs episode.
And just to kind of dip our toe into the water of Muddy Waters, that's kind of when everything kind of took off there, right? Because that's 1996 now, I believe, right?
Yeah, let's go.
That's
yeah.
Also when him and Method Man have kind of forged their relationship and become like, you know, Meth and Red, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had a sitcom. They did a movie, I think. Like you said, they're doing stuff with Christina Aguilera. You know, and it just takes on a whole.
Do you think they rode the train on Christina? Like maybe an Eiffel Tower?
God, I hope so.
Yeesh.
It's 96 hip hop. Anything can happen.
You know,
she was getting dirty. She was getting dirty.
Too. Anyway.
But yeah, no, expert analysis just.
I don't even think Christina was around in '96. I think.
I think Dirty was a bit later. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Are we talking about Muddy now? Or are we?
I mean, let's.
Well, I didn't want to jump to Muddy, but I'm saying like.
No, I'm just
what Cam was saying there about, like, you know, he became his own. He became a celebrity. And I think it all kind of started from Muddy Waters, right? And the peeps who jumped on the Redman train then, well, I hope they did their homework and went back, because as we just talked about, those last two albums, they're fantastic. They're classics, right? And I hope people just didn't get on the ride and go forward and not go back to where it all came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a little homework to do myself, right? I didn't listen to all the EPMD albums quite as much back in the day. I really got into hip hop maybe like 1993, right? 93, 94. I was in the deep end by 94, but you know, I did my homework. I went back and you know, thank God I did, right?
Yeah, man. If we're talking there about his albums, and you guys have said Darkside's like number one for you guys, but if you were to rank his like discography generally, maybe we don't talk about Malpractice, but generally, how would the others fall? If Darkside's number one, what are you going for number 2 and 3?
First albums, I would say definitely falls, because those were monumental tracks.
Yeah.
You know, you can't rule out What. Even though Dare is a completely different experience, What really has the motivators of a Redman album.
Yeah.
You know, those songs are still, I could put those things on in a nightclub anywhere, and you're going after that. You really can't do that with Dare. Dare's something that you put on with your headphones and you just kind of say, wow, I never really remember that element. I don't remember having this experience. So it changes every year, you know, depending on where you're at in life. But, you know, if you go into what really should be the next one, I mean, I really do believe it's Muddy, because Muddy Waters has this commercial sound, and it was Eric Sermon at his absolute finest. You got to remember, he was cranking out so much music out of Atlanta at the time. He moved there. Not many people knew that, but he was cranking out so much commercial successful music that it was a perfect musical record. You could actually take Redman off of it and say anyone can rhyme over this album. I mean, it was that damn good. I mean, musically, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think once you get into the 2000s, it's really kind of forgettable. I hate to say that, because I hold him in such high regard.
Right.
Like after Doc's the Name, I kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
Doc's the Name wasn't that bad though. It was.
I like
some
Dr. Name,
pretty
but-
good.
No, but I'm saying after that, then it became like Malpractice, and then I think he had some obligations to Def Jam, so it was like Red Gone Wild and a few other ones. I didn't love them, and I don't think any of us have gone back and listened to those albums in the decade or two that it's come out. I would say Dare's 1, Whut would be 2, Muddy Waters would be 3.
Definitely.
Okay.
And after that, it would probably be Doc's Name. It's like his 4th best album. But
I mean, you could even just throw in Blackout, right? Because technically that's a Redman.
Yeah.
That was good.
Now you're really throwing Blackout because of Rockwilder production. I mean, at that time, that dude was
unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Perfect.
Yeah. That album, I love that album. It got a lot of, well, not a lot of hate, but people weren't really enjoying it that much. And I played it for this episode. I was just rinsing it for this, and I was like, it still bangs. This still knocks. I really enjoyed it. I still really enjoy that album.
What was the last Wu-Tang album called? Because I think Redman had the best shit on it, right?
he did.
Oh,
He definitely- I think we told him that, didn't we, on the show?
How out of that interview, by the way, just before we go into Muddy Waters, like when you linked that up with him, first of all, what were you expecting? And then after that, what are the other memorable interviews people should go out and listen to you guys? Because let's break out before Muddy Waters. I just wonder if there was any others. But before you got Redman, you must be pretty hyped.
Yeah, I think we were all geeked about it, and I think typically after like we do a really good interview, we're floating on cloud 9. You know, we'll drink, we'll smoke cigarettes, or not cigarettes, some cigars. Kev will smoke cigarettes. We'll celebrate. I mean, because it was like, wow, we spoke to one of our heroes. Like many of us grew up listening to a KRS-One, so to speak to him for a few hours is, you never imagine you would get to have that experience. So, by the way, KRS-One's probably another interview of ours that I think
absolutely
is something that someone should listen to
for sure.
And a little hip hop folklore for our show, we had KRS-One and a follow-up interview that same night, which was
Pete Rock.
Oh my day.
We really got to interview two
night.
legends back to back.
Oh my!
I think we all looked at each other like, "What the fuck just happened? This wasn't supposed to happen."
We peaked early.
With Redman, I feel like we got lucky in that you knew it was going to be wild. We knew it was going to be wild. Redman's wild, but the dude was gracious, and he was the kind of dude that you want to hang out with. You might be a little nervous, like some shit's going to pop off, but he was the kind of dude that you want to hang out with, and he really came across that way in the interview. It was like he wanted to be there. Sometimes when you interview folks like this, you got to pull it out of them. They don't necessarily want to be there. You know what I mean? But he wanted to be there. He wanted to be there, as did KRS-One, which is why we think that's another one of our greatest interviews.
Yeah.
Because he totally wanted to be there. The man was gracious. He went into full detail beyond what we expected on everything we asked him. And Redman really did this same thing and also gave us the the oh shit moments that we were looking for with the comedy and so forth.
Yeah, man.
Our permanent interviews, because speaking of Redman, is actually really good too, I think. For those that aren't familiar with the show, the Eric Sermon interview. Even here's a guy who has stories for days and is like a hidden gem. It's Bones Malone. And that was an interview we conducted years and years ago on a Prodigy tribute show with Premier, Mayhem Loren, and a few other guys. Bones Malone we have it on the site, takeitpersonalradio.com. The guy has the greatest stories when it comes to hip hop.
Okay.
He's actually been everywhere at the moments that the greatest things in hip hop have actually happened.
Wow.
So he's the type of guy who was on the roof, fighting who's going to get Biggie, which record label, and who lost over a dice game or a card game. He'll give you the real deal. Listen to that interview. You'll really scratch your head like, wow, this shit really went on.
That's it, man. That's 90s. I love that. It's just crazy.
Yep.
So, okay, Muddy Waters going in. How's it different to the first two? Where's he going? Like, where's he going with this album? And how do you guys feel about it then and now?
Well, it's not a dark album, and it's not a P-Funk influenced album. Eric Sermon kind of took over the reins again of production, which produced his some of his biggest hits. Pick It Up, Whatever Man, both Eric Sermon joints. I'm trying to think what else was there off this album.
Whatever Man was huge. I think It's Like That, My Brother was like.
Rock the Spot was good.
Rock the Spot was super good.
Yeah.
The joint that samples Beanie Man and Clones. It samples the Clones, the Roots, and Oh, that's
It's not Case Closed, is it? Is it
is
Case
it the
Closed?
bump? Maybe
Oh,
the
might be
bump?
the bump. Yeah, that's got a real Death Squad sound to it. The bump, if I remember correctly.
This is my second favorite of the album because it had bounce. The other two were all the funk, the P funk, and that's fine and everything. But for personal, what we personally look for in records, I like the head knock, the bounce. I want bouncy shit. And I get a little bored when songs sound too similar. So this was my second favorite Redman. I actually like What the Album the best, strictly off of impact and it meeting my expectations and exceeding them actually after hearing Hardcore, because at that moment in time, that shit sounded so good. And it was exactly what you wanted. Like you were not disappointed. The only thing about Redman, if I had to point out anything negative, and personal opinion, I'm not a huge skit fan. I would ditch all skits, although his are funny, and I give him that.
Yeah.
And some of the albums are too long for me. I don't like 23 song albums.
Yeah, true. He does love to put a lot of tracks on there. But I think the skits were a bit different. I know what you mean. I can take or leave them, but NIN and stuff like that, I'd never heard anything like that. It's just crazy. And yeah, I feel you on that. Would you say Muddy Waters is Redman's apex? Is that the apex of his career? No.
No way.
No way.
And I still think Redman has more to give. He just has to align himself properly. He is kind of, I'm not going to say that he's lost at this point, but he is trying to merge forward as an artist independently, where he had so many people in his camp and in his crew. The truth is, if Eric Sermon did a record today with Redman, it would be on everybody's number one. I'm telling you, because they both know each other so well. And that's the beauty about hip hop, is you can come back and be reintroduced to somebody at a different time in life and be susceptible to really understanding what you couldn't understand when you were younger. And I just think the two of them, Eric Sermon knows how to make a record, and Redman knows how to rap his ass off. I mean, I still think he's one of the top linguistically. He's that talented. So I think his best record is possibly what could happen in the future if he's smart, but he needs the right person pointing him in the right direction.
Well, you see a lot of rappers do
I don't believe that. I think it's like, let's talk about soccer. You could take two of the greatest soccer players, but when you put them 20 years out of their prime, as good as they were, they're not going to recreate the magic. Things have changed. Eric Sermon's production these days is a lot different than what it was on, say, Business as Usual, or even on Muddy Waters. He dropped an album last year, Verona, I think. Are we talking about it? Are we listening to it still?
Just panned it, man.
So my point is, so even though he has a name, credibility, history, longevity, does not mean they're going to recreate the magic. So I think, to answer your question, is this his magnum opus? No, I want to say it's probably Dare, but I think this was the cherry on top, which solidifies the 3-run album that you are putting us up to the task of saying who had the best. I think this is it, because this album is so good. It's as good as What or Dare, if you will. And I think the other 3 albums, the third album of everybody else, is not as good as this.
Right.
And I think that's what separates Redman in this discussion.
And Jay, you got to remember, the first one was rugged. The second one was dark. The third one was smooth. I mean, if you really listen, the first track sets it off. Is he for real? Really smooth, man. Sermon at his best. And you got to remember, he was hitting on all cylinders off this third record. And Smoke Buddha, whatever, man. I mean, these are some of the hardest, tracks. And guys, I know I always throw a Mantronics reference in, but the fact that it's like that samples Cole Getting Dumb off of, Just Ice back in the day, kind of makes me really love that one best on this record. So overall, that's kind of what I see with all 3 records. They showcase different styles. They consistently had commercial and rugged hits. And they all had different multitudes of hip hop elements in it. He never stopped putting scratches in records. A lot of people drop the DJ and it becomes all about, the chorus. And as Kev said, the jingle jangle bullshit sometimes. And it just didn't have any gimmicks. He was straight up. The 3 records that were all strong, and he never stayed like level. He was always bouncing up and down to different characters, personalities, and that's what makes him so dynamic.
And I think
I would put him above Cube.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, we'll edit this out. I would put this run over Cube if you're putting Predator in there, because
correct.
These 3 albums are rock solid through and through, and Predator is it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not on the level of any one of these 3. Now the first 2, fucking forget about it. But if you're not going to count Kill at Will and we're going to go Predator, then Redman wins.
Damn. Just to give you a heads up, Predator's my favorite Cube album. So I know everyone's been like, yeah, I'm not sure about that, but that's my shit. Like, all that is my shit. But that again is because I love Muggs, I think, so much that at that time Muggs was like probably my favorite producer. So yeah, but yeah, sorry.
Great album. It's a great album.
But I do feel what you're saying about consistency, because the first 2 of Cube are so big, and I get that. Like, essentially what you said there about like Dare as being his apex, his magnus opus. Do you think outside of this conversation, people feel that? Because everyone I talk to when it comes to Redman, almost all of them talk about Muddy Waters first. It seems to be like
I think
fan
it could
favorite.
be. I don't know this to be the case, but it could be an age thing of when people first were exposed. So a lot of people were exposed to Redman because of Method Man and that whole Def Jam marketing machine that was around them during that time. So Method Man essentially made Redman a better lyricist.
Yes,
that's possible. Like they challenged one another.
Well,
and vice versa. And I think
Redman made Method Man a better lyricist
as well. I think they both challenged one another, but I think people's exposure to Redman may have come courtesy of Method Man, which is why they got, they went to Muddy Waters first versus going to the earlier material like Whut and Dare's a Darkside. And Dare's a Darkside, if you don't know Redman, if you listen to it, you'll be like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
It's not an album like, it's not like beginning Redman 101. You don't want that album.
Yeah.
Like you want fun, loving, we got the fucking weed box above his refrigerator and the one's Redman. And that's really on Muddy Waters. Like that's the guy you have fun with.
Yeah.
That's the guy who can kick a rhyme better than anybody and make you laugh while he's doing it.
Do you know
when
what?
You start dropping acid and eating mushrooms, that's when you want There Is a Dark Side.
But you got to remember, a hip hop audience.
You want to smoke weed to Muddy Waters, and you want to really fucking trip out to There Is a Dark Side.
Let's equate all of them to just drugs. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. What? You just need some whiskey. I think what would go really well whiskey.
Drink to what? Especially when Time for Some Action comes on, and if you're like not getting any pussy that night, you're gonna get angry and you're gonna start fucking throwing fists. That type of shit.
But that's really the hip hop listener. They want that kind of aggression. They want that. Yeah. So to sit down with headphones and really feel the magnum opus of Dare Is a Darkside is not going to happen. Yeah. You need a very experienced ear who's been through the journey of hip hop. It's age, as Jay said. There's so many layers to it. But like Paul's Boutique and other classic albums that have gone through, they'll last the test of time, because 20, 30 years later, you could say, God, what was this? Like, where was this guy? And so when you try to extract these little elements to bring you back to why you love hip hop, because things may take you out of it, current music exactly. But, you may say like, wow, why wasn't I on this at that time? Yeah. And that actually makes the record better.
Yeah. I just thought there, like you were talking about Meth and him, and really interesting how they did. You're right. It's so true. They made each other better. One thing I was thinking, if you made a Blackout 3 and just took bits of their solo albums together and just made Blackout 3, I think a lot of Tikal and a lot of Dare would just complement each other brilliantly, because I think that sound was just uniquely theirs, and they never went back to it. I don't feel they went back to it, and it kind of crystallized that moment for me.
I'm still waiting for a good solo Method Man album.
Hey, amen to that. I thought Tikal was hugely disappointing, man.
Oh,
he doesn't curse anymore.
I like Bring the Pain, and that was fucking it.
Really? Sandman?
Tikal's good. It's not great. It's good.
I bumped Tikal still.
Cam,
Yeah,
like
I would love a 4.5, 5 mic Method Man album, dude.
Oh, but yeah.
It would be amazing, but we never got it.
you need a wall of filters to make.
It could have happened.
You need a wall of filters to make that Method Man album sound good. It is so dirty and underproduced.
It is. Do you think that might be for the flood though? That flood, I don't know. You keep hearing these stories. What was in the flood? I just think. I wonder if there's those meth tracks
you know,
are lost.
flood, earthquake, tsunami. I think it was a rushed album because they wanted to truly capitalize on the success that Method Man was having, and they just put out an album really with no single. And that's why they had to do a remix of, with Mary J, because it was not a commercial success for Def Jam.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question, Cam.
Go for it.
To Cal or the Predator?
Oh, Predator all day long. Okay. Predator bumps, and Tikal's different. It's like a punk album. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it feels like, again, I'm not like, there are some moments on there where I'll wild out and smash like stuff, but generally it's more them albums where I feel like, I don't know, it just makes me feel like a moody teenager again. Whereas Predator makes me feel like, yeah, you can bump that in the whip and you're like, fucking go for it. So yeah, I'm going there, man. You were talking there about Meth, but both of these guys at this time as well, when you talk about Muddy Waters, I don't know if it's just before or after, but he's on All Eyes on Me at this point. He's doing 4 3 2 1. His features, like Red is, if he's not the best man on it, he's definitely holding his own. I would say at this time in his life, in his career.
96 and 97, Redman had some of the greatest features. You mentioned all of them. What about the Lost Boys joint?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Redman and Ras Kass to me had like the best features in that 2-year run, 96, 97.
His best feature ever was the song with MC8 and Spice One.
That was 94 actually, but yeah, Nothing But the Gangster.
We Come Strapped. Yeah, Nothing But the Gangster. And that's what I always loved about Redman too, is that he never got himself caught up in all the East-West bullshit. He always just wanted to rap and have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I look at that guy and that's what I think. He just wants to rap and have a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you fucking not like that? And yeah, Nothing But the Gangster, he steals the show. Oh my God, I destroy cities like the Blob. Like, you know,
that's so awesome. Did he talk about that on the Drink Champs pod or episode where he was talking about the East Coast, West Coast, and Noriega was like, when you featured on Got My Mind Made Up, we in New York were all like, holy shit, who's this guy with? Is he, for a week, they all had no idea, Red and Meth, are you against the East or what? Because it was so up in the air. And Red on that episode is just sort of kind of like, really? I didn't notice any of that. I think he's just like, he's just doing his thing.
Red is, I think he's just his own person. He doesn't align with any kind of like ideology or coast. He just does whatever he fucking wants to do. And he's a free spirit. And I think it comes out in his music. And that's why people on the West like him. That's why people like the Loonies reach out to do collaborations. And like Kev said, MC8, because and Cypress Hill, by the way, let's not forget that Cypress Hill remix with 8 and Eric Sermon. He has this appeal to everybody because the first album, what'd you say, you can drink to?
Yeah.
The second album you can probably snort to. The third album you can smoke to. You know, he's that guy who's very relatable and you know.
How high, all that stuff. Yeah. It just.
And bring in the fact that he was sampling a lot of West Coast music. I mean, you really got to remember it would be unwise to be choosing sides when people really thought maybe, hey, is this guy from LA? Is this guy from, he was a part of that. So I think playing the center was the smartest thing. He was the hip hop's politician right there, playing the center.
Yeah. Where do you think? Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
So, no, go for it, Kev.
I was just gonna say, where do you think it went wrong though? Because here we are now, 2020, and Method Man and Wu-Tang and like that name and the marketing appeal behind it is still pretty strong, right? However, Redman, he was right there and he was getting the marketing appeal and the name and he was out there, but he just kind of took a step back into the shadows, I think. Do you think it's something that he did? Do you think it's something that the labels did? Like, where do you think that spotlight on Redman just kind of went dim, and why?
That was going to be my exact question, Kev. So big up, man.
Oh.
That was actually going to be like, where did it go? Where did it go?
Well, I think you can say that Def Jam slowly dissolved and became a big part of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened was you had guys like Ja Rule, you had guys like Jay-Z and DMX that really started becoming the face of Def Jam. So they kind of lost their way. They forgot who got them there, who helped during that time, because really Redman was an intricate part in the 90s as far as keeping Def Jam relevant. But once the 2000s hit, all those guys, they weren't moving units. Leroy Cohen and Louz, all those guys wanted to get people to sell platinum records. And there was only a few guys that could do it. Like I said, Ja Rule, DMX, Jay-Z. So I think that's kind of what happened. They overlooked their real talent, and they went to the hot hand. And then over time, shit happens.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do you feel that maybe he also made a few duds that where he was trying to adapt?
Absolutely.
And what Def Jam was doing,
trying to adapt. Yeah. I think he tried to play that game. And look, you do have to adapt, but it wasn't what we were accustomed to when it came to Redman. After the first 3 albums, we're selfish. We want our Redman.
Yeah.
And it wasn't our Redman.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear that other shit. You don't want that. You just get mad.
Yeah. Although I think he did Ooh with Della. He had highlights. He still
that was a great song.
Yeah, he did some bits where I was like again, stole that, I suppose. And this is the thing. I think with Red, it becomes that. Where do you see the thing I'm really interested in? Because I know hip hop's completely different now, but you can find like the essence of Mobb Deep. You can find the essence of Tribe. I was just going to ask you guys, where do you think like either Redman, if it's just his character, or if it's his lyrical ability, or his choice of samples, do you still see any remnants of it in hip hop today?
I would say you could hear a little bit of Redman in Action Bronson. I feel, because Action Bronson can bring some comedy and some comic relief to his rhymes, and I think he's actually one of the guys nowadays who like I really kind of check for whenever he drops new shit. I'm always pretty pleased with his product that he puts out to the market. So,
yeah, I think it's a great shout.
I don't know if there's too much of that today. I know M was influenced by Redman, but as far as today's lyricists go, no, I think he's a one of one. I truly believe that.
And that's why I think this argument really stands some validity, because there really isn't another Redman. I don't think that you could find anyone who would want that, because with that is responsibility. You can't be a sucker on the mic, and say, hey, I'm influenced by Redman. It just doesn't work that way. So, he's just a genuine character on so many levels. And to say he's typecast is crazy, because he could really do anything. He can change his style up, and that's what's missing. And that's kind of why I think his 3-album run deserves some real credibility here, and I believe that he's going to win this one. I think Cam, you're on the
he's going to win. So how do we determine a winner? Do we have
do you know what, I've had people ask this, and I was like, look, I can't be the judge and jury here, because I'll get absolutely just hung and quartered. But I was thinking I was going to put it out to the fans, man. At the end of all this, let's see what they say. They're usually right. Who knows, man? But there really isn't a right answer. It's more about like this guy. What you've said there is absolutely perfect. I was going to ask for like a 30-second conclusion, but I think you've kind of just give it there, which is like, he is a one of one. There's people like Buster, and I know there's these kind of comparisons between him and Buster and who bought the rah shit first and all this stuff. But for me, they're quite different anyway. Red is so much more on this other weird, like insane tip, whereas Buster's more about the world's going to end at some point. Believe me, it is going to end at some point. That's essentially what he's been doing for 20 years, and he's right. Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, if out of that, unless you guys want to give a 30-second stab, if someone's got a 30-second conclusion, they want to do it, I can put the timer on.
I mean,
do the elevator speech, Gloss.
No, I mean, this is like the Lombardi speech. I don't know. I think it comes down to this. if you separate the groups, by the way, may I make a suggestion for part 2 of this little contest?
Yeah.
The first 3 Roots album.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I'm in, and I knew you were going to bring up Roots because of Philly, man. I thought Roots were going to come up, but yeah,
I think the first 3 albums you have 3 consecutive.
I think
classics
you could do it with Common too.
Common's a shout. Yeah, Common's a shout.
Which Common? Starting from Resurrection, and then
I would say the first 3 or
the first.
I was going to Resurrection.
Yeah, I thought it was dope. It had Beatnuts doing all, half the production. If him and his boy from Chicago doing all the production, and in the early 90s, that kind of style was like kind of Das Effects, kind of outlandish, doing all the kind of silly rhymes and shit like that, and that worked back in 1992.
Yeah.
But then Resurrection is an absolute gem, top 10 of all time. And then like Water for Chocolate, Jay Dilla.
Introspection for Life as well. Yeah, he has a run. He does.
You could probably argue that 4th album replacing the first one if you wanted to. I don't know, either or really.
Is Public Enemy on this?
This is 90s.
Yeah, because it was strictly 90s. We kind of that's why De La Soul we couldn't use 3 Feet High, even though it's a classic. You want to use that, but then De La were on a crazy run as well, and I would say those 3 albums are pretty amazing as well. See, this is what I'm saying. That out of these. I like how you put it into solos and groups, because solos is really Cube's Pac's thing. Yeah, I don't know, man. You talk about short times of albums dropping. Pac was on a massive, ridiculous, just output, like at that point in about 2-3 years. So, yeah, thank you guys for bringing this argument though, because I feel like Red needed this. I feel like this podcast generally anyway needed more Red. So I'm glad we got to dive in there with it. If there was like, actually, I was going to ask you this as well for your pod, because first of all, tell us where we can go check all that stuff out, and 2, if you had a dream guest to come on your podcast, who would it be? I know you've just had Black Thought, and that was like one of your bucket lists, but give us all your socials and stuff where we can find you, and then
Wade, this is what usually you give them. Where can they hear us, Wade?
Almost all the streaming platforms that are available. So iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio.
Nice.
What am I missing? I just rattled off a bunch. Apple. Apple Podcast.
The easiest way is just to go to our website, takeitpersonalradio.com.
Nice.
One-stop shop.
Nice. And what can we expect? Drop it down. Give us a little pitch to the listeners who may not have checked the show so far.
What can you expect? You could expect the greatest thing to happen to hip hop radio since the early days of Stretch and Bob.
Oh, nice. The mixes are unreal, by the way. These guys are doing some tribute mixes out there that are just sick. The Doom one, as a Doom head, I needed that in my life. So yeah.
And you're going to find everyday dudes. Like we're all sitting there having a listening session, talking shit, having some drinks, having some smokes, telling some crazy jokes. It's some shit that everybody can relate to. Mm-hmm. If you like that 90s centric sound and you're from that era, you'll totally relate and you'll feel like we're your friends.
Yeah, man. I love that.
As far as upcoming shows, there's great stuff that is coming up soon. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there's some great shows in the next couple that are coming out. But
okay.
Dream guest, if I had my option, I would always love to interview Chuck D. Chuck is one of the few rare, godfathers of hip hop. And to be quite honest, there's just something about Chuck. He really is the voice on so many levels. And it's just something that it would have always been an honor to interview somebody who's made such an impact on me, on so many people, socially, politically, and emotionally. And Chuck is just that guy.
Love that. Yeah, Chuck would be amazing. Yeah, love that, boys. Well, thank you again for bringing this argument. I hope that we can jump in again at some point and talk more 90s.
Definitely. You'll have to come on our show. We could pick your brain.
I'd love to, man. I'd love to, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it just leaves me with the last thing that Do you know what? I didn't even ask you at the beginning of this show that I asked
the least hip hop thing we've done.
Yeah, I've only just remembered it just now, like an hour and a bit in. I'm really sorry. I apologize to everyone who's been waiting for that question. But before we do end, then, two things. One, what's the least hip hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours, guys? And then we'll talk about what the last great thing is you heard. But let's see what the least hip hop thing is.
All right, I'll start. So I got two girls. And we just got him a puppy, little Chihuahua, and it's a female puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And I got two girls, and they like the color pink. So the puppy's got a pink collar, and it's getting a little chilly up here because I'm in northern Georgia, and I had to go on a road trip up to North Carolina over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a little sweater puppy, and of course the sweater is fucking pink. So the puppy came on the road trip with us, and here I am at all the rest stops on the car trip, walking the dog in this little pink sweater with a pink collar and a little tiny Chihuahua, and I felt like the movie Legally Blonde. So that's the least hip hop thing I've done in the last 24 hours.
That is good. You guys are gonna have a lot to do to beat that. I love that. If Cameron had a dog in a pink sweater walking it, would that make it better? So you need to wait for Cameron to do that.
He would definitely look a lot. He would look a lot cooler doing it than I did for sure.
I think he would pick purple.
Oh, boom! Purple. There you go. Yeah, he would. Any more?
Mine's actually similar. I mean, my German Shepherd passed away last month.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
My wife was like, I think I need a dog still in the house. I wanted to take a break for a while to not wake up so early. So I follow around a Pomeranian Yorkie mix, which is a 2-pound dog that fits in the size of my hand. Basically, I have to take it out every 2 hours, pick up its shit, and pretend like I'm, still masculine, and my balls haven't dropped. So kind of similar.
Oh,
I think Stretch had the best answer. He's like, well, ask me what I did that was hip hop.
Yeah,
because it's true. Yeah. Once you reach a certain age, like what are you doing that's like hip hop?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I'm gonna go pick out some wallpaper. That's not hip hop. Like there's nothing I've done other than do this show that is remotely hip hop. So
that's good point.
Agreed. Mine is last night baked brownies with my 13-year-old.
Oh, that's nice though. That's nice.
I might have been loaded. Just saying.
What did you put in the brownies? That's the problem. Like, you got to check on the kid just to make sure.
I may have eaten a different kind of brownie too, but I hope baked brownies.
You made the grown up. You made the grown up batch and the kid batch.
Yeah.
Slightly less dose in the kid batch, hopefully. So. Love that, man. Okay, well, I'm glad that we got to that because I'm sorry if I forgot it, but. Last one before you guys do leave us then. The last great thing you guys heard. Can't be Redman, but it can be old, could be new, but just the last great song you heard.
The last great song.
You can check your Spotify.
Well, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a song, but I'm really digging the new Benny album.
Oh, nice. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The last great album I heard is probably the new Buster.
Boom. Yeah.
The Buster Rhymes Extinction Level Part 2, I guess. I like that album. I just got into the new Rock Marcy, but it's too new for me to really make that call.
Okay.
But I'm a Rock Marcy kind of.
Are we talking strictly new?
No, just it could be old, could be new. Just the last great thing, yeah.
I'm gonna go off the wall here. I listen to a lot of music while I'm at the gym. And one of my favorites, and this was going to be my answer earlier on Who Would the Dream interview, I'd say DJ Quick. I was listening to the Divorce song off of the Balance and Options album. And it's him and El DeBarge. And that's a great fucking song.
You trying to tell us something?
It's a great record.
Is everything okay?
No, I'm not trying to tell you something at all. It's just a great record, and I think
you still got that. You still got that couch in that bedroom.
I've slept there a few times.
Yeah, for me,
that album's great though.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, listen, I do so much listening of the mixes that we do, so I'm very, very burned out when it comes to listening to music.
Just say Mantronics. We're all waiting for it.
Funny enough that you say that. I just went to Best Buy before we did this interview, and I put on Spotify, and I put on the very first Just Ice album, which is basically produced by Mantronics.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, there's something about that electro hip hop and that 909 snap in the drums.
Yeah.
I get fucking lost, man. I get lost. So it was, listening to the first Just Ice album.
That's sick, man. That is sick. Well, man, I'm going to try and listen to all of them now, especially the DJ Quick. I don't think I've heard that. Well, I just don't remember that track, so I'm looking forward to going back to that.
Balance and Options is the album. Super good album. I want to say it's his 4th album.
Okay. Love this, man. It's what you get 90s head together. You get all these gems. Love it. Well, guys, thank you very much. Redman episode done. Hopefully we might do an IG live after this with some of you guys. Maybe we don't know. We might jump on there and talk a bit more Redman with the listeners. But for now, man, I'm going to catch you on the flip side, and man, I'll just be tuning in and waiting for the next few mixes and with bated breath for sure.
Thanks, Cam. I appreciate the invite, and hopefully we maybe convince a few heads out there to check for Redman.
Yeah, man. I love
Who's
that.
a Redman? What's a Redman?
Boom, boom, boom.
Peace.
Peace.